Hello and welcome to another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show. Today is Friday, February 24th, and this is episode number 50. Yes, we have done 50 of these things now. It has been a good week. The cycle is fully back in action with PlayStation hosting their State of Play today at the time of recording. It's focused on games from third-party developers. So with it, we got new details, I should say, for Resident Evil 4, Street Fighter 6, and a deep dive into the gameplay and information on Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Before that dominated the week, there was news of the remake of the original Atelier series game coming to the West. It was announced a couple weeks ago for Japan. We also got new information on Starship Troopers Extermination showing off its class system, and Forza Horizon 5 revealing its second expansion also this morning. Before we dive into all of that, though, we're going to take a look at Whitethorn Games, who hosted a showcase event last weekend. So Whitethorn Games are an indie developer. They're an indie developer, but primarily they're a publisher. And what they do is they specialize in games that are chill games, right? So, you know, the best way I can sort of explain it is they're like Animal Crossing. So these games, you know, they'll be, character-driven, story-driven, feature-driven, whatever it happens to be, but they don't require you to have Twitch-based reactions in order to accomplish, insanely difficult combos, right? You don't have to go into them, ready to battle hordes of the undead for 20 minutes with 1% of health and all that sort of stuff, right? These are very chill, relaxing games that are primarily designed to just be a calm experience. It's like watching a Disney animated movie instead of watching Die Hard, right? So that's what Whitethorn Games specialize in. Now, during their showcase event, they provided updates on a bunch of games that we already knew were coming. So I'll just scroll down to those and just go through them quickly. So we got new trailer for The Forest Cathedral, which is coming out later this year for Xbox and PC. We've got a Switch date for Kana Quest. The game's already on PC. It's coming to Switch on March 28. It is a game that will teach you how to read Japanese characters, both the hero, whatever it is. There's the two types. I can't remember the names of them, but that's the game for that. Botany Manor, we got a new trailer on. That's again coming to Switch and PC. Mythwrecked Ambrosia Island is coming to Xbox, PC, and Switch sometime later this year, and it's sort of you shipwreck on an island, and the island is the home of the gods, except they've forgotten that they're gods. You can see, the one in the art there behind the main character, that is Hades. And then we got they've taken the trailer down, but there was a trailer released for Whalefall, which is a game being developed by Whitethorn themselves. And then we got a brief trailer for Tinselfly. And in terms of what was newly announced during it, the first game is called Magical Delicacy, and is coming to Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and PC, with launching into Game Pass on day one. And it is essentially, that's the best way I can describe it. It's like a life game with pixel art, where it's not about achieving 700 tasks a day. It's just about, living your life and doing the things you want to do. It's not as, intensely deep as something like Animal Crossing or anything like that, but it will give you, a lot to do. So when I say deep like Animal Crossing, I mean like you don't have to do X number of things every day, in order to keep the game going. But it's basically, you're a witch. You have to build up your business, your little, potion brewing and all that sort of stuff. And how you do it's up to you. So that was one that was announced. Another one that was announced, and it's very, very little information, but it's called Skatefish. And the basic gist is that you are a skater and you hook a fish in the river, and then you use that fish to drag you alongside the river while you perform tricks. So it's kind of like Ollie Ollie World or Ollie Ollie, if the game was entirely, also about fish. So that is a mobile phone game coming to both iPhone and Android devices later in the year. And then the final one we got was Kernel Hearts. Now this one is very, very new. The trailer itself is very short. It's all of 19 seconds. We know it's coming next year. we don't know the platforms. So we don't know if this is Xbox or PlayStation or Switch or PC or, you know, whatever. We know nothing about it apart from that. It was one of those sort of, hey, we've got this to show you. It's very early sort of things. But yeah, so they showed off, as I said, quite a number of games. And it was nice, you know, to see another sort of indie-focused publisher stepping up to say, hey, look, we've got our own things we're going to show off. So, you know, check these out as well. I said, some of them there do interest me. Like, I'm very keen in checking out Magical Delicacy and Botany Manor. And I'm also sort of a bit of a sucker for the Greek gods mythology. So we'll see what that one shakes out to be. Now, the video they showed does have, you know, an actual sort of commentary walkthrough with some of the developers. So if you are looking to learn more about that, be sure to give that a watch. All the links will be in the show notes on YouTube and also in Twitch after the show is done. Moving a little more locally, we actually have some information on a new game from League of Geeks called Jump Light Odyssey. And when I say new game, this was announced last year, but it was a very sort of brief announcement. But during the week, League of Geeks released information on both Jump Light Odyssey and Soul Infernum. That's another one. We'll talk about that another time. But this is the one that I'm most excited for out of the two, because this one reminds me of the Irresponsible Captain Tyler anime, which was, you know, a late sort of a mid-80s anime. This one's very much set in the 70s, which is why it's got that sort of style. Now, let me pop the trailer on here. This is launching into early access on PC. When it does release in full, it will also hit Xbox Series X and S and PlayStation 5. Now, it is a spaceship simulator where the people on the ship are under the rule of the Princess Euphora, and they are the last surviving members of their planet. They were on board a ship when another race turned up to, you know, basically destroy them, because that's what this evil alien race does. And then, so these are the last survivors. They've got to, you know, make a living out in space. So it is about, you know, finding resources, building equipment, making sure the ship doesn't catch on fire, you know, making sure that the aliens who are still chasing you don't catch up. You know, as you can see, they're ejecting people into space if, you know, they're not doing what they're supposed to do. So, you know, you have to manage both the people on the ship and the ship itself. We just saw then the delightful pig Ham. Ham is your like mascot, and yes, you can pet Ham. So again, it is coming to early access first. There isn't a set date for its release yet. It is, as I said, just coming sometime in 2023. Now, the big thing with this one again is it is a resource simulator. So you can't just, it'll probably be a sandbox mode eventually, but you can't just place down everything you want. You know, you only have finite space on the ship because it is a spaceship. You can't just go poking holes in walls to try and get more space. It doesn't work like that. So it's very much like, you know, the 2 Point series, which is sort of the bigger ones of this sort of genre recently. Evil Genius 2 from Rebellion is another one. So it's very, you know, that sort of style of gameplay. So if you're interested in anything about that, you know, as I said, that is coming sometime soon, which is very, very cool. Stepping away from things coming sometime this year to things that are available now, the Xbox Game Pass titles have been updated again. That was a horrible segue. I apologize for that one. But we got word about new games that are coming. One's already available. The others are coming over the next few days. So Merge and Blade is coming on February 28th. This is a xCloud, Xbox console and PC release. It is a somewhat, you know, battle simulator-ish action game. They consider it a puzzler, but it's also an auto battle thing. It's very weird. I don't get a lot of it from the game itself, from the trailer. Maybe, you know, once you play it, it'll make more sense. But, you know, it looks interesting. I am a sucker for pixel art gameplay, you know, pixel art look, so we'll have to see what happens there. Also on the 28th, Soul Hackers 2 will come to, you know, PC, console, and Xbox. That is available now by default. You can just purchase it up if you want it. Then on March 2nd, F1 22 will come to console and PC thanks to EA Play, which is, you know, an inclusion into the service. And then on March 3rd, we'll see the release of Wolong Fallen Dynasty. That is a day-and-date release for Game Pass, so the game is releasing that day, and it'll be available as part of that membership. On the 28th, so next Tuesday, we'll see Alien Isolation, Crown Trick, Dragon Ball Fighters, Far Changing Tides, Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13, Madden NFL 21, and Octopath Traveler all be removed. That last one's kind of funny because Octopath Traveler 2 released today, but the only platforms it didn't go to was Xbox. So Xbox didn't get the sequel, and then on Tuesday they're losing, as part of Game Pass, losing access to the first game. It is always fun to see, more and more of these games being added, especially because they're not all just, big action games. There's a bit of variety there. There's the hardcore, hack and slash with Wolong. There's the racer with F1, and there's, the RPG with Soul Hackers 2. So it's all good stuff to see that mix. Also during the week, we got word that the first game in the Atelier series is being remade, and it's coming to the West. So we got this news a couple of weeks ago for Japan. It was in their Nintendo Direct. But this is now the first time we actually have confirmation of it coming here. So Atelier Marie Remake, The Alchemist of Salzburg is the full title. And it's the very first game in the series. And the third game in the Atelier Ryza series is coming out in a month's time. I had got the chance to play it. We have a preview up for that now on the site. But this is the original one. This is the very first one. This is the first game. There's now been 24 with the third game coming out. The third game of the Ryza sub-series coming out next month. There are 24 mainline games in 25 years, and there's a few spin-offs as well. So it is a bit of an interesting thing visually. Now, obviously, they're making some modern-day changes to it, doing things to welcome in new players, streamlining some aspects here and there. I'll get to that in a moment. But what I think is funny is the visuals are just so different. When I say different, I don't mean compared to what the new game being made this year is. So all these characters, they all kind of look like Mii's My Sims sort of chibi style characters, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. What I find to be quite interesting is when the game goes to the talking scenes, it brings up really high quality 2D visual cutouts of the characters. So it's kind of just one of those weird ones where they've got like two very distinct art styles. So in terms of gameplay, they're not making it to look like the modern games. They're still keeping the original aesthetic that the series started with and kept for a number of years. They're just remaking everything in modern assets. If we get to it, it should pop up. And that's whole really cool looking high quality 2D art that I'm talking about, and so it's kind of just a little weird. So that's the main character. That's Marie. That's who you play as. So I said, graphics, obviously are being updated. But one of the big things they're doing is, adding in more tutorials and updating the movement system so it's more fluid. And the game will also offer what they're calling an unlimited mode that will let you basically ignore the deadline. The main gist of the game is that you, Marie, you're in school to become an Altair, which is an alchemist, and you have 5 years in which to graduate. So even though you can do things at your own pace, there's still that ticking clock all the time that you have to push forward at some point. If you don't, you may miss classes and all that sort of stuff. The unlimited mode removes that and just lets you experience everything at your own pace. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, it's got this really cool traditional looking art for all the character interactions, but then it's this chibi-fied version of everything every other time. As I said, it does look quite cool. If you're a fan of the series, there's a fair chance you maybe haven't played this one, so it getting a chance to be redone is likely going to be very exciting for a number of people. The game is coming to PC, Switch, and both PlayStation 4 and 5 in July. Currently dated for the 13th, but we'll see if it sticks the landing on that one. Also announced during the week and released was the latest update for No Man's Sky. So called the Fractal Update, the main reason this update released on the Tuesday was because it added PlayStation VR 2 support to the PlayStation 5 release of the game. One of the big things that it did, obviously, is add that too, but it also added in some higher textures and bits and pieces to make use of all the VR tech. And when I say make use of all the VR tech, I don't just mean PlayStation specifically, but they actually used this as a reason to redo a lot of the VR stuff for the PC release and the PlayStation 4 version. So even if you don't yet have a PlayStation 5 or the PlayStation VR 2, there's still some VR specific updates available. One of the other things too that they added in is they added an updated section to the catalog called Wonders, which just helps you track things a little easier for those people who are trying to like check everything off the list. PlayStation and Switch owners, as part of the update, also got gyro controls, meaning that going forward, if you want, you'll be able to do everything with motion controls for movement and looking, all that sort of stuff. You can also use the gyro in the menus. So currently on consoles, it uses, the stick uses a virtual cursor, which, Destiny started that years ago, and it is a horrible, stupid system, and I do not like it. But now with the gyro controls, it does basically allow you to give, like with a mouse sort of esque feeling to interacting with the menus if you turn it on. The Switch release last year got, increased text size. Because obviously the Switch screen is a bit smaller, so they needed to adjust the text size for that. Now all other platforms, so PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, can also enjoy the game with the larger text if they so desire. There's also a whole lot more. So there's new missions. There's a new, things for Switch. With the Metal update that came out a while ago, some of the early content is now available on Switch. There's a new sort of Star Wars looking helmet. The ship fleet count has been increased ever so slightly. And I said, because of all the VR stuff, they've updated the textures here and there for all versions of the game that support VR, not just the PlayStation 5. There's also more advanced feedback information for vibration and all that sort of stuff. There is a massive list of updates that were included as part of the release. So again, the link for that will all be in the show notes, so you can check that out later. I'm very excited. I jump into No Man's Sky every couple of weeks. I'll jump in and play a few hours because I do enjoy the game. I enjoy, going in, going, cool, what's my objective? What am I doing today? Just running off, getting minerals, getting resources, building what I need to do. And I think it's a great way to spend an hour or so. Obviously, the game is very, very different today to what it was when it first launched. So the team is still actively supporting it, and they're not a very big team. They're somewhere around 30 people. So they're not a massive studio, and they're still actively supporting this game and doing other things at the same time. So all good for them. During the week, we also got a new trailer for Starship Troopers Extermination, which is the 12-player co-op shooter set within the Starship Troopers universe. So this was announced last year, and we got a brief trailer for it last year. The game is set to launch into early access on PC soon, and it will eventually come to PlayStation and Xbox consoles when it's fully released. No date on when that's happening, just at the moment it's PC only. But specifically, the information we got this week was around the classes that you can do. So there's the support class, the gunner class, all that sort of stuff. Now, I'm not going to play this trailer with audio. I don't play trailers with audio for copyright reasons. But the narration on this is very, nasally high-pitched. It doesn't really work for me. But yeah, this game, the fact that this game is not ready for early access release yet, they're still taking their time to get it right for that first step, and this game looks as good as it does, is honestly a real surprise to me. So obviously one of the big things with this is based on the movie universe, the movie that was released, some 20 plus years ago, which starred Neil Patrick Harris and a few other big actors like Michael Ironside, who voices Sam Fisher, plug for our Splinter Cell series we're playing at the moment. But the big thing with this is, again, it's a 12-player co-op shooter, so you can play it with just a few mates, you can play it with 12, so you can really get in and deal with, all the bugs coming in. So there is obviously the assault class, they're the front lines, they've got the big guns, they're going to start, dealing out the damage. Then you've got your engineer class to help build barricades and fortify your position. There's the support class who will be able to take you in, provide aid to you on the battlefield. Where is there? Cool. So, this is an example of what the assault class sort of layout looks like. So, you know, you have a primary weapon, a secondary weapon, and a bunch of utilities, and then abilities. So utilities are specialized things that you can carry. Abilities are, you know, generic to everyone, like grenades and things like that. Depending on the type of, you know, class you have, the utilities will change. So if you're a support, like a medic class, you'll have like a medical thing here. Again, this game looks really impressive for a game that's not even in early access yet. It also, unfortunately, makes me concerned about it. Many years ago, the guys at Penny Arcade coined a term called a bullshot, which is a bullshit screenshot, which was something that the PlayStation 3 was notorious for. They would release videos about how amazing their games looked, release screenshots from them, and then the games were releasing and they looked nothing like what they said they would. So that's where that terminology came from, and I like using it because, you know, it's very easy to do, hey, this is what our game's going to look like 2 years from now once it's fully available. But, you know, they're showing this off now. So I'm not saying this game won't look this good when it launches into early access. I'm just saying that, you know, given how many games launch into early access and launch in weird ways, I don't hold out hope that this is going to be, you know, an amazing, you know, day one title. Even though it's only in early access, I suspect, you know, the overall visual quality will be a little bit lower. Speaking of low quality visuals, we have to take a step back in time and talk about UFO Robot Grenadizer. We're not actually taking a step back in time, but Microids announced last year that they were developing a game based on the beloved anime series and manga from Japan, and this week we got the first, if short, gameplay footage of the game. So it's officially called UFO Robot Grenadizer: The Feast of the Wolves, and it's based on the anime. Now, I don't know the show in detail. I know that it exists. It's one of the very early, you know, mech robot animes that ever existed. It predates Transformers. It predates, you know, Voltron, all that sort of stuff. I don't know much about it. I know they've made a big to-do about the music for the game, that it will be a big thing for the series. That, you know, they're remaking, and by remaking I mean like recording new versions of the classic themes. So if you are a fan of it, that'll probably, you know, be very exciting for you. We do know it's coming this year, and it's coming to all platforms, so PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch. There's really not more information on it, but, you know, they did release that first trailer, so I did want to show it off because I do think it looks quite interesting. The world itself reminds me a lot of the Dragon Ball game that came out, you know, a couple of years ago and just hit PlayStation 5 and Xbox recently, Kakarot. You know, it's got that very, you know, colorful but very simplistic looking world. You know, a lot of green. But yeah, just obviously with a giant robot instead of a Saiyan. So that's very interesting stuff there. Whew, we're finally getting through all the regular non-news. You know, we're getting close to the PlayStation State of Play stuff. Now, obviously, we're not going to go through every reveal from the State of Play for obvious reasons. It's just a lot of it. But, you know, I've picked out sort of the things that I think were quite interesting from this show. One of the things that happened overnight before all this was kicked off was that we got confirmation on the release date for the first DLC for Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. So called the Tower of Doom with 4 O's, not 2. So it's not Doom, it's Doom. You have to, you know, extend it out. Or if you're Morbo from Futurama, it would be Doom. I love Morbo, great character. But yeah, so Mario Plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, the Tower of Doom, is the first DLC and it is set to release on March 2nd. Now, the date was really the big thing from this. The trailer itself doesn't really show much information. But what we do know is that Madame Boistrella, because, you know, she's a rabbit, has asked Mario and the rest of the gang to help her out in saving Spawny. Spawny was the character, it's the one here with the weird VR-looking goggles on his head. He was the character in the first game that put that, you know, when the rabbits spawned into the, you know, our world, and he saw this headset, he put it on, and then, you know, everything he looked at started blending with other things. And then, you know, they got transported into the Mushroom Kingdom, which is how the Rabbids and Mario and all that came together. So that's how all that works, and that's what that character is. Didn't make an appearance in the main storyline for the second game, but he's sort of starring in this first DLC. The Tower of Doom is a tower, and as you progress up floor by floor by floor by floor, the challenges will get more and more complex. It's not really like a battle. You have to sort of do all 100 floors and go. I guarantee that's probably what will be at the very end. But it's just a matter of clearing out encounter after encounter. The weird thing about this one is exclusive to the season pass. So if you want this but don't own the season pass, you will not be able to buy it on its own. You have to buy the season pass to access this first DLC. The second DLC and the third one, which includes Rayman, will be coming out, maybe like June, July, and then maybe October, November. Based on cycles of development. We don't have any other information on them yet. We do know that for the Rayman DLC, Mario and all of the Mario characters will not be in it. It'll be exclusively Rayman and Rabbids, which is kind of interesting. This is the first time those two properties are coming back together in a long time. So it's quite interesting that they're doing it that way. I do think there's more that they could have done for it. But that's sort of what they've chosen to do in terms of not bringing things together, but just adding more information for the the thing. This is obviously a very easy DLC to put together. It doesn't require a lot of new assets. If this tower is just existing locations, just blended in new ways, which is what I suspect it will be, because that's generally what these sort of things are. So, it is an option for players just to, go out and try something different. I'm a little concerned about it, being locked to the season pass. Not saying the season pass won't be good value in the long run, but generally speaking, you don't lock, a battle, a roguelite sort of mode behind it. But, who knows what they're thinking about in their minds. Moving away from Rabbids, we're going to go back to the world of Terra Nil, which we only just talked about a couple of weeks ago. Specifically, that Terra Nil now has a release date. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about the game where they dropped this massive 4-minute trailer showing off a bunch of the new locations that you can terraform and reclaim, and make them, full of life once again. I said back then, I was really hoping for a release date from that trailer. It was such a good trailer. And now we actually have one. So the game is coming to PC and Netflix games on March 28. So when I say Netflix games, I don't mean like netflix.com/games on your computer. This is for mobile devices. So if you have the Netflix app on your mobile phone, you can jump in and play a bunch of games. There are a few Devolver ones in there already. They sort of struck a deal with them. The trailer is just sort of a truncated version of that one from a couple of weeks ago. It's just, chopped and changed. But the big thing is with this one is that the team behind the game's Free Lives, they're going to be donating a portion of the profits, the total sale of profits and all that, to the Endangered Wildlife Trust in Africa. So Free Lives are, I believe they're South African, but they're an African-based development studio, and the Endangered Wildlife Trust is based in Africa. And as so Sam Alfred, the game's co-creator and the lead designer, just said, from the very beginning of development, we've wanted Terra Nil to be able to have a real-world impact. After much searching, we found the perfect partner to make this happen in the Endangered Wildlife Trust. Free Lives will be donating a portion of the profits of each sale of Terra Nil on Steam to the Endangered Wildlife Trust to help them in their efforts to preserve and restore ecosystems in the real world. Now, that obviously is a very big thing. I know the dollar amount. I know the percentage amount. I'm not going to say it because it's not sort of for public consumption, but it's not 1%, right? It's a fair number. So for a studio to spend years developing a game, investing their time and money into it, and basically to turn around and say, hey, we're going to donate a portion of the profits from this game to from every sale to another group to help support the planet, I think is amazing. They didn't have to do this. They could have just released the game and for a message up that says now that you've reclaimed Terra Nil, you can do more in your own backyard, something like that. That would have made sense, for a studio just to do that and be done with it. But no, they're actively going out of their way to ensure that there's actual real world impacts, for you guys buying the game. So I think it's very, very cool. We'll just have to wait and see how the game shakes out. We do know, there's obviously the traditional sort of, plains and rivers. There's the lava, the snow, the abandoned cities. How all that shakes out. Now they've said too, something that came out during the week is it's about a 6 to 8 hour sort of game. It's not going to be a super punishing game. It's not going to be an insanely long game. But because every level, generates a new layout every time you play it, it will always be something different to see and do. Moving on to the big sort of news from Xbox this morning is that we also finally got information on the second expansion for Forza Horizon 5, and that is that Rally is coming back to the series. So the full title is Forza Horizon 5 Rally Adventure. It is being set in a new area called Sierra Nuevo. I was going to put that the other way. Sierra Nuevo. And it is based on the trailer, I just look at it and think it's, Mexico light. It's got a lot of the same locations as the main Mexico map. Rainforest, deserts, regular sort of jungles, mountains, all that sort of stuff. But it is very much focused on the rally sort of side of things. Rally isn't the debut to the Forza series, to the Horizon sub-series, I should say. It was in the original game way back on the Xbox 360, so the first Forza Horizon that was set in Colorado. But since then, we haven't really had it, in there. I personally don't think it should be in Horizon. I think it's sort of a very niche mode that won't appeal to a lot of gamers, because the big thing with Horizon is that, you don't have to be super on track. You don't have to hit the racing line, to hit that perfect apex, to get through the turn without losing speed. That's what the main Forza series is for, Forza Motorsport. Whereas the Horizon series is more about, sure, you can take this corner at 300 kilometers an hour if you tap the brake, and drift around it, right? It's sort of more about, you just, having fun and racing. So we do know there'll be 10 new cars they're adding to the game, which may not sound like a lot, but they're also adding a rally system to the game. So you'll be able to modify all the existing, maybe not all the cars, but a bunch of the existing cars to include, rally mechanics. We know that there will also be a new Horizon story. There is going to be a new radio station called Epitaph Radio, or Epitaph, depending on how you say it. And then it's a punk music station. For those folks that do spend time in the event lab, there'll be a wealth of new content for, designing and creating a whole bunch of content there. As again, I'm very excited for a new map to explore, new regular races and all that sort of stuff. I just don't think Rally's the right fit for Forza Horizon. It's the same sort of reason that, the drag racing is sort of very limited in its scope, because it's a very niche appeal. The bush bashing events where you're just barreling through the countryside, those have, a limited appeal, but because they're the track's so wide open, it doesn't really matter, if you don't hit the right racing line on them. It could just be me. I mean, I may be one of, only the few people that isn't excited about the addition of Rally to the game, but, that's the thing. It doesn't have to appeal to everyone. We do know that one of the new locations in the map will be a quarry, and there'll be a lot of Gymkhana-based stuff in there. Whether or not Ken Block, who, was the originator of Gymkhana, and did a lot of work with the Forza series and that sort of specialized version of Rally and tricks, will be connected to the game anyway, because obviously he did pass away quite recently. We don't know. Obviously, if they're putting Gymkhana in there, his name will probably be thrown in, but the actual breakdown of it, we don't know how that's going to shake out in the long run. Right, we're moving now into the state of play. So we got through a good portion of stories before we got to it. So there's only 4 games that I'm going to call out from this. Obviously, Resident Evil 4, Street Fighter 6, Suicide Squad are 3 of them. But the one that really sort of caught my eye is called Humanity. And Humanity is basically, it's from Enhance, and Enhance are the folks that are doing Tetris Effect Connected, which just got updated, getting updated this week. Sorry, it got updated this week. They also did Lumines Remastered for the Switch. Resco, many years ago. So they have their sort of roots in rhythm and music games. And Humanity, the moment I sort of saw it, I just thought it was musical lemmings. So in Humanity, you are a Shiba Inu, the dog, and you have one command that you can do, and that is woof. When you woof, you can tell people to change directions, go left, go right, all that sort of stuff. The reason why I call it musical lemmings is, I'll pop the trailer on here, is that the big thing with it is that you have to direct people to the beam of light at the end of the stage. So the beam of light could be, up the very top of a whole bunch of things. So you've got to direct them, to get up there, and that may mean, so he can see, they're turning right, but, they don't follow you specifically. They just follow the directions, and the square you're on where you bark, that'll be where, the action takes place. So as you can see here, there's, this ability for them to jump up. There are fans to, push them and change directions, water that they swim through. And it could just be a fun puzzle game like that. But as you progress through, getting all these folks through to this beam of light, the others appear. Now, the others are they're literally the others, right? So there is, your group of humans, and then there's the others. The others are the oppressive ones. They'll chase you down. They'll try and stop you from, getting your folks to the goal. I don't know how many of these massive looking battle things we're going to see in the game, but yeah, I honestly just think it's musical lemmings, which I'm okay with. Some of that stuff looks very weird. We'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out in the long run. Obviously, looking at it here, you can actually make your own stages, which is another big thing that appeals to me. You can make very basic things. You can make really complicated things. You can make more art-based sculpture-looking things and just have a small thing. But for every level that you create, a million more people are going to create other stages. So there's always going to be more and more to do, apart from the 90 or so that the developers themselves are including. The one thing that I find interesting is there is a demo available for now, but it's only going to be around for a limited time. So if you do want to give it a shot, you will have to jump on board and do so, before it goes. Obviously, you can see here there's like a jump pad, and you can see them jumping and landing. There's an arrow here to turn. When they get to this square, they turn, they climb up, and there's another arrow to turn, and off they go again. So I think it looks interesting. It is obviously something that, we've seen games like this before about, you controlling or directing large groups of people. But, in terms of a rhythm connection, there's never been anything like that before. Now, the game is coming to both PlayStation 4 and 5, as evident it being in the state of play. It is also coming to PC via the Epic Game Store. But on the PlayStation formats, it will support PlayStation VR. So PS4 owners will get PlayStation VR, PS5 owners will get PlayStation VR 2. So you'll be able to see the game from an all-new perspective if you so desire, which I think is very interesting. Keeping with the theme of interesting and the state of play, Street Fighter 6 revealed the final 3 characters for their launch roster. So the 3 characters that were revealed today, in terms of the returning characters, we've got Zangief and Cammy. And then the final new character that will be available day 1 when the game releases in June is Lily. So I won't play the trailer because it's just a lot of, them fighting. But Cammy's obviously sporting a very unique look. Her stage is, steampunk London, which when I was watching this morning, I was like, this makes no sense to me. If it was just set within a weird theme park, sure, but, there's nothing to say that's the case. Zangief is looking, very big and burly, which is what we expect from him. And then obviously Lily, she is the newest character to the game. There may be more in, post-launch content, but for now, Lily is the newest character. She is smaller. She's one of the smallest characters in there. I don't actually have it turned on to make these full screen. I'll fix that. But she uses these clubs. So they're not clubs in the traditional sense. If you've seen the Book of Boba Fett, or you've seen Star Wars with the Tusken Raiders, with the sticks with sort of the pole bean thing at the end, it's very, very similar to that. So it's sort of a long, in this case, they're a flat bit of wood with like a weighted, heavy end, designed for impacting damage. Basically, she's walking around with 2 hammers. Actually, for her, I will put the trailer on. Sorry, Zangief. But yeah, so I when I saw this, I was kind of like, this is kind of weird. From the waist up, she looks like she's like 8, and from the waist down, she looks like she's mid-20s. It's quite a unique character design. But knowing Street Fighter fans that cosplay and create art, there's probably 100 pieces of it already. And as you can see, she's making full use of the. There is actually a name for them. I did look it up earlier because I wanted to know it. But she's making full use of these, extensions, if you will, to herself. Because again, she is quite small compared to a lot of the other characters. How she goes, in tournaments, because she's completely new, we'll have to wait and see. I do like this in a sort of finishing thing. She actually, Blanca sort of slipped away. Wasn't the plan, but that was sort of how that all went. So it does look very cool. Again, this is the final 3 of the launch characters. So Ken, Ryu is in there, Luke's in there, Chun-Li, and a whole bunch of others. But these 3 are the final ones to be added. So going forward, if there are any new character reveals, they will be post-launch content. But that means on June 2nd, when the game does hit, PlayStation, Xbox, so PlayStation 5 and 4, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, these 3 will complete that day 1 roster, which I think is kind of cool. Moving away from the bright and colorful world of Street Fighter, we're going to head into the dark and creepy world of Resident Evil 4. So specifically, we got a new trailer for the game, and at this point, I don't know why they released this new trailer. People are either on board with the remake of RE4 or they're not. If you've not played the original version or one of the many versions of RE4, this is likely going to be all very new for you, especially if you've been playing, the more recent Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 8, Resident Evil Biohazard, sorry, or the remake of RE2 or RE3. This one's very, very action orientated compared to those. So obviously the big thing here is it's not zombies in Raccoon City or anything like that, or some creepy castle with werewolves and all sorts of stuff. This is a cult in, we'll say, Spain. They never actually specified where this game's set in all the years, and it's Las Plagas. They're sort of the baddies, and they go out of their way to kidnap the president's daughter, which is Ashley, who you see running around on screen there, and forever getting captured by the enemy. But yeah, so the goal for them is to embed one of these creatures into her, which they we saw a glimpse of it at the start of the trailer. That she is infected. Leon gets infected. That's who you play as later on. And the goal is basically for her to go back to the US whilst infected, and then reveal. It's not reveal, but like transfer the infection to a whole bunch of other people and spread everything, right? The big thing, obviously, for this series was before this, it was all very simple, isometric, not isometric, but fixed camera positions, and scares and all that sort of stuff. Whereas this one, there she's infected. This one, they went out of their way to make everything more action orientated. We just saw Ada there. There's Leon infected. Again, it's all very bug-like. And the big thing with this too is that this was the first game in the series where a headshot wasn't necessarily a good thing, because if you did a headshot in the Resident Evil remake or Resident Evil 2 or 3, or Code Veronica, generally speaking, with the zombies, that would take the head off, they're done, you're good to go. With this one, taking the head off just means that the parasite that lives within the body has space to expand out. Now, the other information that we got as well, which you may have seen it there in the trailer, is that the Mercenaries mode, which sort of keeps getting added post-launch to a bunch of games, is coming back for this one. We do not know exactly when, what features it will include, what characters or anything like that. We just know that it is coming, so that is something to look forward to. The other thing too is we are about a month away from the game releasing, and Capcom have confirmed that there will be a demo made available prior to it being prior to the game releasing. But again, we don't know exactly when or how much of the game it will include, or if anything from the game will transfer across. So that's all that sort of stuff there. The last game I wanted to talk about from the state of play was Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Which, we've seen a few times, but usually it's just a character-focused trailer. Today we actually got a proper gameplay look, and it's not looking good. So the big thing with this one is that, it is a up to 4-player cooperative adventure game where you're either playing as Harley Quinn, Captain Boomerang, Deadshot, or King Shark. And the big thing with this is it's set within the same world as the Arkham games. So when we say the same world, we don't mean that it's, they've just taken that world, made a different version of it. No, it is canonically, Rocksteady Studios, the developers, have said that it is canonically set 5 years after the events of Arkham Knight. Now, in this game, Brainiac has arrived and he's corrupted, the Justice League. So you can see Flash here. The biggest clue is that the eyes are sort of, got this like purple glow to them. That's Brainiac's thing. Anything that's purple is going to be a thing you want to shoot and destroy. Even when, so he's putting a giant cannon into the ground here to start, blasting up, defensive lines that the city have sort of done around it. And we'll see in a moment that, it has giant purple gooey orbs appear all over it, right? So this is sort of what we've seen all this time, right? Just trailers like this focused on characters, a little bit of humor. There's Captain Boomerang making statements. But now we actually get into gameplay. So this is Harley. Now, after having like 3 Batman games from Rocksteady, where all the action was like it wasn't slow, but it was methodical, right? You could run in and just start trying to wail on 100 guys at once, but it didn't necessarily mean you were going to survive, right? If you weren't paying attention. Whereas here, so this is a Captain Boomerang that has, tapped into the Speed Force. That's why he's, dashing around and all that sort of stuff. There's, the tank with the giant purple orbs all over it. You shoot those, it blows up. But, his big thing is that Captain Boomerang uses boomerangs. That's literally his big thing, right? He's not Captain Guns. He's not Captain Machete. He's Captain Boomerang. And at no point in this trailer do I see him throw a boomerang. He's just using guns. Deadshot, it makes sense with, because Deadshot is a gun guy, right? That's his whole shtick, is that, he can target, anyone from, a kilometer away and take them out with his guns, right? Now, Deadshot is the Will Smith character from the first Suicide Squad movie. So if you're sort of trying to place them, that's that same character. But this is, King Shark, he's melee driven, but he's still rocking guns. And I can understand them saying, well, hang on, all the enemies have guns too. It's like, yeah, but the enemies had guns in Batman. So having guns doesn't necessarily mean your character has to have guns, right? And again, he had a submachine gun, now he switched to a shotgun. Now he's back to sort of the automatic pistol, using his Speed Force powers to sort of take out enemies in one go there. But there's nothing about it that makes me think this is going to be a fun game. And when I say that, I mean specifically everything about it is, it's like if the game was designed by committee. Like somebody went to Rocksteady and said, hey, we sat down in a room with all the executives from 7 game companies, and they said, these are the top features that people love. We want you to put them in a game. Like Harley Quinn rocking a minigun kind of makes some sense, right? Now, but this thing, the whole her grappling and flying away, right? Yes, there's a little drone. You can see it in the shots with her, when she sort of gets up to the apex of the swing. You can see that, she doesn't just grapple into the clouds like PlayStation 1 era Spider-Man, but she does grapple to it. But it's like the whole point with Batman and the grapple wasn't because, it just made for a cool thing. It was like, that was how Batman got around. Harley Quinn's big thing is that she is, she's an acrobat, she's a jester, she's a performer, right? And we can see some of that in her actions, bouncing around the place. But there's never anything in it that makes me say, that's Harley Quinn. For all we know, this is like that Gotham game from a number of years ago where it was, the Gotham. Everyone was bad guys, and you had to like create factions and stuff. I'll think of the name later. But everyone was like dressing like the Joker, but they weren't the Joker, right? Everyone was dressing like the Penguin, but they weren't the Penguin. So you could dress like the baddies, but you weren't them. It was just a generic, shooter game, right? So everything about this just sort of makes me question it, right? So this is more character-driven stuff, more levity, and it does end with Wonder Woman coming in and smacking down on the ground. But I don't know. After seeing this game get delayed multiple times, seeing they're focusing on the baddies all the time, saying, hey, we've got this character and this character and this character, right? They showed off the Flash at many times. We got a tease of Batman last year at the Game Awards. In terms of all the characters, everything was starting to build up to be right. And then for the gameplay to be this generic, especially after coming from the 3 Batman Arkham games, it just made no sense. And there's Wonder Woman coming in with the lasso of truth. There was nothing about this that just said, oh my god, this game's going to be amazing. And honestly, I get the Avengers game that Square Enix published a couple of years ago, which shuts down in a few weeks. There's nothing about this that makes me say, yes, this is the next, the next iteration of the Arkham game. So, I have to play this because of this reason, right? Focusing on all the people, right? So there's nothing about this that just says this is going to be a great game. Now, I haven't played it yet. It could be a phenomenal game. It could honestly be, a complete dog's breakfast. We honestly don't know at this point. But there's nothing about the game that makes me think it's going to be good, right? Because everything, I said, it feels like it was designed by a committee, and the committee were like, yeah, we need guns, we need insane over-the-top action, we need them to be able to fly through the air for 4 minutes without landing because Superman can do that. How can you take King Shark and have him fight Superman if Superman doesn't land on the ground, right? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They did also drop like a behind-the-scenes thing where the developers are talking about the game and how happy they are and proud they are, and if you want to be a bad guy, this is the game for you. But again, none of that makes me excited, right? They confirmed that there will be DLC content coming, new characters, new baddies, and all that sort of stuff. And there will be like season pass stuff, but all the items you can buy are all just cosmetic, right? You'll be able to have all the characters play through in their Arkham uniforms here that you can see in that sort of still, which is fine. But again, it all comes down to why does that matter? Why does having Harley in her Arkham outfit as opposed to her Daddy's Little Monster outfit make a difference? Well, it doesn't. It's just cosmetic. But at the same time, it's like if you're not taking that seriously, it just shows you're not taking anything else seriously. The other thing too that was announced today is they put up an FAQ on their website that revealed a whole bunch of information about what the game is going to offer everyone. In terms of, yes, it's full crossplay compatible. So if you have it on PlayStation 5 and your mate has it on PC or Xbox Series X or S, you can all play together. It is up to 4 players. So you can play it completely solo, swapping from, King Shark, one mission. Then when you're done with that, you can swap to Boomerang, or Captain Boomerang, and then go back to Deadshot, and you can bounce around. If you prefer playing as Deadshot or Harley Quinn, you can play for them through the entire game, right? There's no requirement to play a specific character for a specific mission. But if you do play co-op, you can play with a friend, you can play up to 4 players, and everyone gets their own character. The thing that also irks me about this is if you do play it solo, right? I generally, when I play these things, it's usually for review. There's usually not a lot of people that have the game prior to release. So I generally don't get a chance to play these things with other people. But if I'm playing this, if you're playing completely solo, you have no interest to play online with anyone else, you have to play with the internet, right? You cannot play this game offline. And that is something that is honestly just a pathetic designer's choice that they've gone ahead and made. And there's nothing about this game that says it has to be online, right? There might be leaderboards, there might be, hey, you've earned things, here's a free cosmetic for you to get, right? That stuff's fine, but it's not a requirement. And it honestly, I'm at the point with games like Suicide Squad and Avengers and Destiny, and that got a trailer again in the state of play today. But I'm sick and tired of these games where they're forcing people to be online for their games when they're allowing you to play completely solo, right? I can jump into Destiny 2, the current version of it, and play everything solo. Never interact with another person, right? Another human character. Everyone is just an NPC, right? They've designed the game that way, that you can play completely solo, right? You don't have to team up with anyone, and you can enjoy almost all the content that they're offering. Some content, you have to have certain power levels, and generally speaking, you have to have a couple of friends with you to do some of these, high-end dungeons. But if your power level's up high enough, you can still attempt it solo. Right? They don't say you can't enter this because you don't have a friend with you. They just say, hey, are you sure? But even if you're playing completely solo and never for 1 second want to interact with anyone else, you still have to be connected to the internet. And mobile phone games are the worst for it. Nintendo's mobile games are notorious for this, right? You can't play like Super Mario Run on a plane unless it has, unless you're connected to the plane's Wi-Fi. And it was one of those things which just makes no sense, because why do these games have to be online? If I'm playing with them, if I'm playing an MMO like Warcraft or Star Wars The Old Republic or any countless other MMO that exists, right? Or I'm playing Counter-Strike, Call of Duty, Battlefield, Rocket League. If I'm playing these games with other people, yes, online makes perfect sense, because you can't play with other people if you're not online. But if I'm playing solo, if I'm playing, Call of Duty campaign, right? Call of Duty campaign doesn't require online, right? But if I'm playing Call of Duty campaign, I don't care about the rest of it. If they made it that I had to be online to play that, that would make me question whether or not these guys have any goddamn clue what they're doing. And it's just, I'm at the point now with these games where I'm questioning what the hell they're doing, putting these, and it's not a feature, it's a restriction. If you don't have decent internet, right? Let's say you go out and you buy Suicide Squad on disc at your local retail store, right? You take it home, you put it in your console, and it copies to the hard drive, because that's what they do, all of them. If your internet's not the best, right? So you can download the day one update, which is another issue they need to fucking fix. But if your internet takes 10 hours to download this content, right? It could be a 2 gigabyte patch, but your internet is not the best, which in Australia is a lot of the country. Then, being forced to be online all the time to play this game that you're not playing online, you're playing solo, you're playing on your own, makes no sense. And as a design choice, it is downright pathetic. I could rant and rave about some of these things that the developers are doing these days until the cows come home. But the general point that I'm trying to make is, with online requirements, that should only be there if the game is an online only title, as in a multiplayer only title, right? So Titanfall, the first game, was a fully messed up game because it had no story, but it was an online only game because that's what they wanted to do. Titanfall 2 introduced one of the best single player campaigns in recent years, and that's even now a number of years old. But when they released it, they didn't make you have to be online to play that game. If you wanted the multiplayer, yes. But if you wanted the story, no. So, in terms of what they're doing, it is a stupid decision, and they really need to question where the hell they came up with this. And the fact that this game's been in development now for 8 years, because Arkham Knight released in 2015, and yes, they did release the Batman Arkham VR as a launch thing for PlayStation VR. That was a glorified room inspection thing, right? You weren't allowed to move around yourself. You could just walk from point to point. For them to have spent 8 years on this game, and it is now online required with generic, crappy gameplay, I question whether or not the studio just happened to luck onto a formula with the first Batman game and then milked it dry. Because at this point, I'm not seeing anything that makes me over the moon about them going forward. Right, moving away from all that, let's check in with the games that are coming out over the next 7 days. Obviously, there's no games coming out over the weekend unless somebody happens to just release something. Today was a bit of a big day. We had Kirby and the Return to Dreamland Deluxe come out, and as well as Octopath Traveler 2. But next week on February 28, March 1st, depending on where you are in the world, Destiny 2 Lightfall will release. That's the next expansion for that game. For here in Australia, it'll be March 1st, like the early hours of March 1st. If you're in Los Angeles, it'll be February 28th. That's just the way that's sort of shaping up. The 28th will also see the release of Scars Above come from Prime Matter. We were set to have a review for that, but they just never delivered the code like they said they would, so there's no review coming for that one. On the 1st of March, we'll see Bendy and the Dark Revival come to PlayStation and Xbox platforms. That's a survival horror game. On the 1st as well, we'll see Brock the Investigator. So not investigation, but gator as in, an alligator. It is a point and brawl adventure. So it is part point and click adventure, part brawler, like, Double Dragon style. So that's coming to Switch, PlayStation 4, 5, and Xbox One. The Fist of the North Star boxing release is coming on the 2nd. That was only just announced the other earlier today. Is coming to the West. It's been in Japan for a few weeks now. And then coming on the 3rd, which is next Friday, will be Wolong The Fallen Dynasty, which is launching for PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, and it is launching into Game Pass as well there. And also Void Terrarium 2. That'll be coming to both Switch and PS4 next week for us. It released last week in other parts of the world. So, it is obviously, there's a wide range of content coming. It's not going to be a lot of content compared to the last couple of weeks. Those have been sort of chaotic. But, next week we'll go through the full list of games coming in March. With that all being said and done, that means we are at the end of another show. We, as I said, do record these every Friday at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard or Daylight Time at the moment. So basically 7 p.m. Sydney time is when we do these. We'll be back next Friday with another episode. So we'll dive into the games coming out next month, as well as the PlayStation Plus and Xbox Live Games with Gold. PlayStation did release that list today, but we do them at the first episode of the month, so they're saving that for next week. We'll be back on Tuesday for another episode of our Splinter Cell series, where we've made some good progress in Pandora Tomorrow, which is the second game of 6. Who knows how long it'll take us to get through. We managed to get through 2 missions in last week's run. If we get through another 2, we're basically halfway done on this game, so I'm very excited for that. Apart from that, we'll be back on Friday for another episode of the Maxi-Geek Show. But until we see you online next time, happy gaming.